noodling intro of a topic that I've been wanting to talk about, which is guitar players playing with profilers and modelers as opposed to playing with amps. Okay, so it's not a rant, it's just more of a commentary. So when I grew up learning to play the guitar, this electric guitar, you would buy a guitar and you'd buy an amp and maybe some pedals and go direct. So physical things. My first guitar was a Kent guitar, and I remember didn't have the money for an amp, so I got this Kent copy of a Stratocaster, and I plugged it behind in the back of a stereo system, and the speakers ended up becoming my amplifier. All right, so flip the script. Nowadays, you've got, and I mean some jazz players playing like this, a lot of people playing via the computer. And there's a couple of good things and some bad things about this, in my opinion. So, first of all, the way they're doing it, this is not the video for that. I'm not the expert, but simply put, is people buy an audio interface that could be a Focusrite, things that cost like $200 to anywhere up to like $1,000 for an Apollo or something like that. But in any event, though, guitar goes into the audio interface. Audio interface is like an intermediary, and that goes into a computer, and then the computer is the brains behind everything, and it's able to download software that allows you to play amp sims. And there's a gazillion of these things out there. Very, very confusing once you start getting into that. And then after that, the sound will come out of either side of your stereo speakers, I should say your laptop speakers, or you'd buy studio monitors and it'd come out of that. So, the advantages are pretty obvious, right? So you've got a computer going and you're downloading things, costs at the end of the day, and space too. So a lot of these simulations are a very, very expensive amps. So for example, what got me thinking about this was, I had a Tone King Mark II Imperial and I loved it, but I'm not a big amp guy. What I played through mostly is a Henriksen, and I've basically been playing Henriksen for 7, 8, 10 years. Ever since they came out, I've had a Henriksen, and I continually, go back to the Henriksen. Right now, it's the Bud, and I've had Milkmans, I've had Tone Kings. All of these are expensive amps. They cost like $3,000 to $2,500 and things of that nature, and so most people don't have that kind of money. So one of the things that the Amp Sims allows you to do, if you're somebody that's very, very curious, it allows you to sample everything from all the different plethora of Fender amps, from Princetons, from Bassmans, from deluxe reverbs. It allows you to sample tons and tons and tons of pedals, everything to your dreams, Klon-type pedals, distortion pedals, reverb, delay, and so on and so forth. It allows you to sample countless and countless numbers of cabs. 8-inch cabs, 10-inch cabs, 15-inch, 2x12s, 4x8s, whatever. So you start getting the idea. So it gives you access to a lot of information. So much so now, people can buy their guitarist's patch, the best. If you want to sound like, I don't know, Joe Satriani, there are downloadable patches for that and Kemper profiles and things of that nature. So what I wanted to talk about was, from a jazz guitar perspective, where does the jazz guitar actually fit into all of this stuff? Okay. I've got my own perspective. I think it's a kind of a difficult question that it probably relies on your age or your outlook on music. One of the things I found out, first of all, I'm not one of those people that has a lot of these things. I've dabbled here and there in them. And what I found out is that there's so many choices and so much choices that a lot of the time is spent for me on a learning curve, which takes away from the actual act of playing the guitar. So that's the first thing. And it probably would be very, very beneficial for me if I was a different type of guitarist. I could definitely see if I was a metal guitarist, if I was more of a pop guitarist, and I wanted to do grunge and I was really into pedal and I was a gearhead, then yeah, that would be the way to go. It would be to get myself, great audio interface, some great headphones, some great studio monitors, go to town, a Neural DSP, Guys like Jonathan Cordy and all these people. That's what they play through, and they have actual amps and things of that nature, and they sound great. So it's not about that. But let's talk and let's take a look at jazz players. So for me, jazz players, by virtue of the sound that they're trying to get, are primarily clean players. I know. You've got newer players, people like the Gilad Hexelman, the Kurt Rosewinkle of the world, Mike Moreno, um, um, a bunch of players play with pedals. But if you really listen to their tones and the pedals that they're playing with, they're mostly essentially things like delays, chorus. They're not distorted sound unless they're playing fusion or things of that nature. And you can kind of accomplish that. But there's a big difference, though, in terms of having a deluxe reverb for size, depending upon where you live and things of that nature. But let's just talk about the sound in and of itself. So nowadays, technology has come so far that the Hendrickson is a 6-inch speaker. That's what I'm playing through. 120 watts, 6-inch speaker. You could play gigs with this thing, and a lot of jazz guitars play it. And I'm talking about the 6. I'm not talking about the 12, the 10, or anything. 6-inch speaker that weighs 13 pounds can fill up a room. And of course, you can go through PAs. There's a direct out for bigger speakers and things like that. And this is not an infomercial for the Hendrickson Bud, but it's a great amp. And I tell you, if you play jazz and you're serious about it, that's the only amp you'll ever need, bar none. I guarantee you on that. But in any event, though, I think because the jazz sound is primarily a clean sound, for me, I prefer smaller amps. I could go out tomorrow, and I might, and go get a Bugera amp, go get a Polytone amp, keep the Hendrickson and things of that nature. I found out that I love the headrooms off of like deluxe reverbs, Princeton's, and hence the reason I bought the Mark IIs. What was the other one that I had? The Milkman and all that. And their tube amps and things like that. But I found out I wasn't really using it. So I wasn't cranking it and overdriving. Even the Tone King Imperial, which had like an attenuator, yeah, I messed around with that, and then I rocked it out a lot, and it was fun. But I'm not a rock player, so you got to know the type of the type of musician that you are. If you are a rock player, if you're really into testing out a lot of gear, it's a wonderful experience to have at your disposal. Like I could go out tomorrow and via Neural DSP buy Tone King Imperial plug-in, and depending upon the setup that I put in there, it's gonna sound pretty damn close to a $3,000 amp. That's crazy. Okay, that's insane. So that's the benefit of it to me. And the benefit, and I kind of probably alluded to it already, is about space. So if you live in a small apartment and you can't really have Marshall stacks, and you want kind of that Marshall sound, but you can have like an Adams speaker or Adams monitor in your laptop, and then go to town and learn some songs off of that, and so be it. But like I said, I don't think it's a necessity for jazz guitars. Companies like Quilter, like Hendrickson, Bugera, and even Fender still with the not so much the Blues Junior for me, but stuff like Pro Junior. There's enough of these small amps that, based upon where most jazz players are playing, is more than enough to power that. And I think that it does give you a different experience to play with an amp versus the modelers. And what I find out is that my friends and the people who do play a lot with them, there's a big learning curve for that, and they're constantly dialing and choosing the mic set and the mic angle and deciding on what cab to put in what head. That you look at it and you're playing for about 10 20 minutes, and you ended up playing 3 minutes because 17 minutes was deciding on the cabs and all this setup like that. So that's what you got to be careful about. So, but yeah, it could be useful, but at the end of the day, I am still a proponent of the old school way. Get an amp, get a guitar, and plug it in. And the other thing somebody might say is like, well, if you want to play electric guitar and you travel, you can kind of travel that, because you can play. I did at one point in time have an Amplitude software thing and a little adapter stuff, and I could play through my my phone and things of that nature. But here's the thing: get yourself an acoustic guitar. You'll get better. Don't you? It's like lifting weights for electric guitar, jazz, metal, pop. Yeah, that's my scenario for that. Play the damn thing acoustically, and you'll get better. So, in any event, though, love to hear your thoughts on how you're using modelers, how you're using amp simulation, and is this going to be the new dawn for jazz players at some point? They're going to be downloading, Polytone amps, Hendrickson amps, and deluxe reverbs, and that's basically using amp sims, just like everybody else. Maybe they are already. I'm just not aware of it. I'm late to the game. All right, then. Thank you again for watching, and as usual, regardless of whether you have an amp sim, an actual amp, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, just practice and practice some more.